So welcome back to the Kotlin Android series. If you've been following along, you now know the basics of Android views. But guess what? Today we'll be rolling our sleeves and bringing those concepts to life. We are going to create some of the most common views used in everyday application like TextView, edit text, button, and images. By the end of this episode, you will have built a simple layout combining this view. Let's dive in. I created a new project called Common View. So to find your layout under the Android, open the app folder. Under the folder, you have res folder. You have res folder. Under the res folder, you have layout. So your design or your layout file is found here. For the first time, when you create the project, this is the default design that Android brings to you. It uses a view group called constraint layout. Okay, so this is a view group called constraint layout, and it specifies the properties. Inside that, it places a new view called TextView, and the purpose of this view is to display text. In the previous episode, I said to create a view, you first of all specify the name of the view, and then you proceed by adding the properties, and it is through the properties that you determine the look and feel of the view. The next thing is that every view has a required property, a two required property, which is the height and then the width. I'll leave a link to the previous video in the description. So let's start small. So I'll remove this text view, and then I'll change this constraint layout to a text view. So we'll create a basic view, which is the text view here. Okay. A text view is usually a self-closing tag. So for a self-closing tag, you don't open a tag and then close the tag. You close it by adding a backslash in front of the greater than symbol. So you just put a greater than there, and that's all. And a text view, we use it to specify text. So it needs a property called text. So you can see our text at the top here, so small. This is just a warning. I'll speak about it later. You can ignore it for now. I'll change the text size to something like 24. And then you have to specify the unit, SP. Okay, so you see that the text is getting bigger. Let me go back a little. The properties that you specify on the view comes from two general namespace. So this is what we call namespace, XML namespace. So the first one is the Android namespace. So the Android namespace means that the attributes you are using are coming from the Android framework. And then the second one is the app namespace. So the app namespace allow you to use custom attributes or attributes from third-party providers. This three is your namespace. So this one, the third one, provides you the option to use design mode attributes. So these three properties here specify the namespace where the attributes are coming from. So we use the Android namespace, we use the tool namespace, we are yet to use the app namespace. So these are also required properties you have to specify to determine where the attributes are coming from to avoid conflict. We give a view an ID in order to have access to it in our Kotlin file. For a text, you have to specify the text property in order to set what the text to be. So You use the text property, then you pass the value. I can say hello Android, and then you can also use the text size. So we use the text size to specify the size, what the size of the text should be. When you specify text size, we apply a unit, like the way in mathematics when you calculate dimension, you specify whether centimeters, kilometers and stuff. Is the same here. But here, when you are applying a size to a text view, you use a unit called SP, and the SP stands for scalable pixel. Then we have our required property, which is the width and then the height. So with this, our design is set. We've just designed a test view. We can run it by clicking on this run button. So to view your app, you open this site, running devices. I've connected the project. So this is it. I've run my application on my physical phone. I use Wi-Fi to connect. So this is our first view we've designed. Let me go over again. So you specify the name of the view, which in this case test view. You specify the namespace where the attributes are coming from. And lucky enough, by default, when you create a project, it comes with it. And then it's a test view, so you can set other essential properties. We can specify a property called gravity. So the gravity determines where your view will be in the main container. For now, we don't have a container. Our container is the main phone view. So if you use the gravity, you specify whether the item should be on the center of the phone view or at the left, the top, and the right. That's what we use the gravity to do. And the gravity, we have two types. We have gravity from the layout underscore gravity. This one allows you to specify the gravity based on the container. And then we have the self gravity, which the view itself determine whether it should be on the right, on the left, or on the left. So you use the self one. Since we don't have a container, you use the self gravity, and then this brings the text to the center of the phone view. So when we run it again, we'll have the view displayed in our phone. So to see the phone, you come here, running device. Now that we have a test view, let's say I want to add another test view. I'll copy this test view and then paste it below. The test view has changed red. This is an error. It's indicating that we have an error. Secondly, too, the view that we added has not been displayed on the page. The reason is that this is not allowed in Android. To use multiple views, you have to place those views in a view group. You have to remove this and start using the view group. And how do we use the view group? In general, we have view group like constraint layout, linear layout, and others. So we'll start small by using the linear layout. So now I'll convert this view to a linear layout by typing the name linear layout. So you select the first one. But linear layout is a view group, it's a container. So you have to give it a closing tag, not a self-closing tag. To do that, you remove the self-closing tag and then bring the greater than, which brings the rest of the tag for you. Just type greater than and the rest of the tag will be provided for you. Then inside of this view now, we can paste our test view and then add another test view. So this one, there is no error now. We are just seeing the error for the ID. The reason being that you can't have multiple the same ID in the same file. Well, IDs are unique. Let me change this one to something like welcome. And then this one to description. Then our error is gone. but still our view is not visible. So from the previous video, I said when you want to use the linear layout is a container for arranging views either vertically or horizontally. So you have to specify that property that determines whether the items will be arranged vertically or horizontally. So we use a property called orientation. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, support the channel, like, subscribe, and share. It will not cost you a thing. Please subscribe to support my effort. And I'll promise that I'll deliver, I'll teach you the Android from beginning to advanced level where you can publish an application. Okay, so you select this orientation. And then you have the option between vertical or horizontal. So we'll select vertical for now. So I selected vertical, but still our view is not showing. And the problem is coming from the layout width and then the layout height. For now, we specify the height and the width to be match parent. Match parent means that the view should be big as its container, and the parent or the view group is match parent, so it will take the entire phone screen. Since this one is taking the entire phone screen and we are saying the text should also take the entire phone screen, then both of these views are sitting on each other. So we have to change it to something flexible, which is wrap content. So you set the height and the width to wrap content. So wrap content means that it should just take as much space as the content. So when I type the hello world, then the view will be as big as the string hello world. So the longer the text, that's how big the view will be. So now when I switch it to wrap content, you see that the view has shrunk from the edge here to just this side of the view. And when I change the height also to wrap content, you see that the entire view will be restricted to just this part. So now we can see the top view and then we can see the down view. So I'll change the second view to the third view to wrap content as well. So now that I changed it to wrap content, we have our two tests here. For now, the gravity is applied individually to the test views. I'll remove it to the parent view. So I copied it and I'm applying it to the parent view. It's already here though. So this hello world and then the test property and the test size are not necessary on the linear layout. It will not have any effect, so you can remove it safely. So the property gravity is on the container, which will apply the gravity to the children. So now I can remove the individual gravity inside the text views. We are getting this warning here because we have the namespace declared here. You have the namespace declared here and it's declared here again and declared on the second view, which is unnecessary. That's why we are getting that warning, so you can safely remove those namespace from the children. It should be on the parent, which is the view group itself. So now we have our test view. We know what a test view is and we know how to apply test view. So let me change this test to something like, let's set another test property called test style to make it bold. So you use the text style to apply either bold, we can give it italic. Then we have the normal, which is the default normal, so you won't see any difference. Let's continue. The next view is edit text. So you add edit text, edit text. So what are the edit tests do? So the edit text allows user input. So the input field that you can add stuff is the edit text. So I'll give it a width of match parent, and then I'll give the height wrap content. So this is the input text. Another essential property you can give to it is a hint to tell the user what is about to enter. So I'll say username, okay, so that the user will know that he or she has to enter username. You can add an ID of ID username. So to add the ID, you first use the property ID, and then you specify the value of at plus ID. It means I want to add an ID, so at plus ID slash the name of the ID. So in this case, I'm naming this view username. Let's try another one. So here I'm adding another edit text for password. I'll give it match parent, and then I'll give it wrap content. I'll close it and then give it an ID of at ID at plus ID forward slash, and then I'll give it an ID of password. Good. And then I'll give it a hint property so that the user know what he is about to enter. So I can say password. So aside these few properties, you can specify another property called input type. So you see, when you are using your phone and for example you are about to enter a date or a phone number, the keyboard changes to numbers, or usually if it's a date or numbers input, the keyboard changes to number. If it's a text, then you have the text keyboard. If it's a phone number, it changes to phone number. So you can use the input type property to determine the kind of keyboard that will pop up when the user puts the cursor focus on that input field. So you have the options here. There are a lot of options. So our first one is username, which is a text. So you select a text, and then when it comes to the password, you can set the input type to password. So this will make input field hide the password whilst you are typing it. So I'll select the test password. The next view we will look at is button. So you add a button by typing button, and then you specify the required property, which is width and height. I'll give it wrap content, and then this one wrap content. I don't want it to extend all the way to the edges. I'll give it an ID of log. So I'll give it ID of at plus ID forward slash login. I'll specify a text. So it is the text that will show the information on the button. So a text, I'll give it login. Okay, so now we have our text on the button. Let's talk about colors. So you can apply color to any of the view by setting the background color. For the button, we have the background color that you can apply. So the colors, we use the hexadecimal colors. So we use hexadecimal values to specify colors. So for the hexadecimal, it starts with a hash and then 6 characters that represent colors in Android. So 6 characters. So once you specify these colors using the hexadecimal, you get a small box on this side. This small box is a color palette. Once you click on this tiny box, on the left side here, it will open more color palettes for you to choose from. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, support the channel, like, subscribe, and share. It will not cost you a thing. Please subscribe to support my effort. So you can come here and switch between the colors. So let's use the background tint so that we can see the effect immediately. So you change the color of the button using background tint. Switch, okay, when you come, maybe you might see resource. Switch between the resource and then the custom. Then you have the colors that you can play with. Okay, so you can choose any favorite color that you want. I'll stick with this orange for now. Likewise, you can apply the colors to the text and then any view at all, you can apply color to it. I can even apply color to the background of the entire layout by using the hexadecimal value. So once you apply part of it, you have your color palette here. So you can come to the palette and then switch between the colors that you want. So I'm just giving it light blue. I don't want it to be too take over the whole thing. So you can change the background color. It is up to you. But like I said, I'm giving it something very light. You can combine view groups with other views to create a more complex view. So the view group is just a special view. You can use it like any other view. So for example, I want to add a message whether you want to create a new account. So I'll combine the linear layout in a complex way to achieve that. So I'll give it match parent and then wrap content. Then I'll close it out. So this is it below the button. So inside of it, I'm adding two texts. So now I put the two texts in the linear layout, which is also inside this linear layout. So let's specify the orientation. So this one will be horizontal orientation. I'll put it in the center, give it a gravity of center. To achieve that center gravity, we have to change this with match parent to wrap content. So now we have our text here. So I can change the color of this text to blue by specifying text color. So there is this property called text color. And then I'll specify the hexadecimal value. Just come here and then pick some blue color. Okay, so I'll make it blue. So for now, the text is so small, so I can increase the size by giving it text size. I'll give it 20 SP, and then copy the same text size and apply it to this second text size as well. So I'll give this one ID of create account. So the ID is create account, so that when the user click on this part, I can take the user to the registration screen. So I give this one ID. Since I'll not be further processing this part of the text, which is do not have accounts, I can leave it without an ID. So the text is so close to each other, I can give it a text by using a property called margin. So I'll give it margin, the margin. So I'll give it 8 dp. Okay. So you see that the view are out of place. They are not in line. So the margin, when you use the margin property, layout underscore margin, it applies the space around the entire view. It applies the margin around the entire view. That's what we are having. And you have the option to apply just to the start, the end, the top, or the bottom. So the left side is the start, and then the right side is the end. So I can apply just at the start. This is the start of this text view. So I can say margin start. Okay, so we have this property. You can use that one, margin start. And then the space will be applied just between this side. Okay, between the text view. And here we have it. So you can add your text. You can give it a space using margin. So you can apply the margin to just the start or the end of it, or the top. You can experiment with that and give me your feedback in the comment section. Okay, so now we have this option. Let's look at another view. So we have all these view, this linear view or view group inside the main view group. So you can click on this drop down, this small arrow here that is facing down, to collapse that view so that you can have more space to work. So I'll just click on it and it collapses the view. We'll look at another view called CheckBox. So the checkbox allows you to select multiple items. So let's say we have a lot of options that the user can choose from. So with the checkbox, he can check it or tick it as yes or no, and then select from that option. You see the tiny box here. So that's the checkbox for you. Give it an ID of remember me. And then you have to give it a test to explain what it does. So I'll give it a test of remember me. Okay, so the user can click it to check it. Okay, so you can use it to create something like this. I agree to terms and conditions. Let's look at the next view, which is RadioButton. So the checkbox allows you to select multiple items. I can add another checkbox and then allow the user to check all. But there are cases where you want the options to be mutually exclusive. You use a view called RadioButton. So here it is. But the RadioButton is usually placed inside another view group, and that view group is called radio. So this is another view group for arranging RadioButton. So I'll paste the one I created earlier into it and then give it ID. That's the first item. And then I'll give it a test so that the user know what it is about. I can say option 1 again, option 1. Okay, so the user knows that it is option 1. Then I'll copy this and repeat it like 2 times. So let me change the ID to student. Let's say you have an application that allows you to choose between whether you are a student or a staff to log into the application. Then you can use the RadioButton like this. So you choose whether you are a student or you are a staff. So here I'll change it to staff. And I'll change the ID. So your ID have to be meaningful. You don't just drop any ID, name things anyhow. Your ID has to describe what that view is doing. So this option allows you to give option to the user. So I'll run it very soon. And when you run it, you realize that the user has the option to choose just one item. It can't be a staff and a student at the same time. Okay, so you choose just one. Inside of it, you can place a text view here to prompt the user about it and say something like, so I can say user type. It is up to you. You can put it inside a radio button or you can put it outside the radio button this way. So let's run the application by hitting on this run button at the top, and then we open our device. So now we have our design. So when you click in the input field, you have the option to type whatever you want to type. Let's say the username is an email. Because under the password, we select the input type as password. You realize that when you are typing, the characters will be hidden. If I should remove it by default, it will use a test. So I'll run it again. When I come to the and I'm typing, now the password is visible. But if you use the input, you specify password, then your text will be hidden. Let me apply these changes. So to apply changes, this one allows you to run the application. So it will build the application all over again. But if the changes you do, you want to just apply that change, then you will come to this side. On the right side of the run button, you will see option here that says apply changes. Okay, so the change has been applied. So once it was applied, you realize that the text all of a sudden became hidden. So that's how it works. So let's look at the last view. So the last I want us to learn about is image. To display image, we have a view called ImageView. So I've talked about using the default dimensions. So the default dimension is match parent and then the wrap content. So these ones are controlled by the Android system. So the Android system determines what should be the match parent and then what should be the wrap content size. But you can set the dimension yourself to the size you want, which is in this case set it to 200. So you can either rely on this one or you can set your own. It depends on your design, the way you want it. So for the dimension for views other than text view, you have to specify the unit as DP. That's density independent pixel. Density independent pixel for DP. Density independent pixel. So I want someone to explain to me what it means in the comment section. What density independent pixel means. So for the image view, you specify another property. That's the most important property for you to see the image, which is SRC, which stands for source. So the source of your image. You specify your image. So when we were doing the overview of the Android Studio, I told you that all your images are found in the drawable folder. So for now, when you created the application, Android gave you 2 images, which is what you see when you want to open your application on your phone. You see the icons. So you see this Android icon when you run your application. Okay, so these are examples of images you can use. But the question is, how do you add image to your project? So to add image to your project, so you have to download or have your image file that you want to use in your project. So once you have that, to add a new image, you come to this resource manager. Just under your project icon, there's another icon under it called resource manager. So you click on that one. And there's a plus icon at the top here. You click on that plus icon and then select import drawable. So when you click on that import drawable, it opens your PC for you to select the options. So I'll just pick a random image though. So I'm adding this to my project. So now I've added that image to my project. So I can just come to my project and specify the source as that application called first name. So to do that, you use the at symbol and then specify drawable. That's the name of the folder. That's how we refer to a location in Android. You specify at, so the file is in the drawable. So you say it is at drawable. So at drawable and then slash the file name, which is first app. Another property you can specify for it is the scale type. So the scale type specify how this image to fit in the image view. So we have the image itself, which we want to import, and then we have the image view. How do you want this image should be positioned within the image view? We have several options here: matrix, fit center. So you can experiment with them, and then you learn more from it. So we have center. When you use the scale type center, this is how it will appear. And then we have fit. So I'll use fit center. So that's how the fit center appears. We have center crop. Okay, so center crop, this is how it will appear. We realize that the edges of this edit text and the image, everything is pushed to the extreme edge. So to fix some of those things, I can set a padding. So padding, and I'll set it to say 16 so that it becomes visible. Okay, so this is it. It has pushed from being tight to the edge. Okay, so the padding, that one is for, it's like the margin, but the space is within the view. So if you want to give a space outside the view, you use margin. If you want to use the space inside the view, then you use padding. So padding provides space within the view. So I use the padding here because the linear layout is the outermost layout. In this project, the linear layout is the parent or the outermost layout. So if I use margin, then the space will be outside this view, the linear layout view, and then the phone screen, which I don't want. I want the space to be inside the linear layout and its content. So when you apply that, it will fix that. But when the view is innermost and you want a space like what we did here, a space between this, then I can use margin to push the space between them. But when I use the padding, it gives the space within it. And now what design is looking nice. But you realize that this text is so close to the image. So you can change it by applying some margin top. So you can continue to style it to make it appealing. So this brings us to the end of this episode. We've looked at the common views in Android, like the text view, image view, edit text for accepting input, the button, and then we've looked at linear layout, which is a view group, and then we look at the checkbox, and then we have the radio button for selecting just a single option. We've looked at how to add image to our project. We've looked at a lot. We've run the application on our phone and we see how it looks like. So in the next episode, we'll connect it by adding interactivity to the project by accessing the view or binding the view that we created here to Kotlin. So that, for example, when the user enters the information here, we can retrieve those information and then display on our screen. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, support the channel, like, subscribe, and share. It will not cost you a thing. Please subscribe to support my effort. And I'll promise that I'll deliver, I'll teach you the Android from beginning to advanced level where you can publish an application at the store. Before we finish this Android series, I'll publish the application to the store for you to see how to create the application from scratch to production. So see you in the next episode.